Welcome to St. Louis on the Air. I'm Jeremy Goodwin. Today we talk to St. Louis Treasurer Tishaura Jones, who just yesterday announced she will be reevaluating the city's relationships with the banks that handle its money. She wants more info from those banks about things like their proportion of women and minority employees and just where in the city they're making loans and opening or closing branches. Treasurer Jones, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So just first off, when we talk about banks getting city deposits, explain what that means. What is this money and how much of it is there?
So I am the chair of the Funds Committee, which includes myself, the mayor, and the comptroller. And each year we evaluate banks and literally tell departments these are the banks that the city will do business with based on an application process, which is really a survey. We meet every summer to refresh that list based on the number of banks and credit unions who've actually submitted the information. And then we have the St. Louis Department of Planning and Urban Development actually synthesize that data into a report that gets put on the city's website.
Okay. And I mentioned some of the info you're looking for, but basically you sent out a message to banks, do more. What else are you looking for?
We're looking for lending patterns, and we've been looking at this data since obviously this data has been coming in for a long time, but I've been looking at it with a more finely toothed comb since I took office in 2013, and the lending patterns have remained the same. You can, like I said, the planning department actually maps out where loans are being made and where loans are not being made. And it looks like any other map that we look at of the city where there's no lending activity going on in North St. Louis and parts of South St. Louis, that where typically more low and moderate income people live. And there's a lot of lending activity in wealthy or affluent areas in the city. So we have to change the trajectory if we want to create a city where all of our families have an opportunity to thrive and build assets.
Let's delve into that point a little more. When we talk about income inequality or inequality of opportunity in this city, what role do banks play in that?
Well, redlining is one of the roles that banks have typically played by not properly valuating houses. The exact same house in North St. Louis is $50,000 or more or less valuated than the same house in South St. Louis, where appraisals, for example, are not lending or banks are not lending to people in those areas because the houses don't appraise out because of lack of comprehensive or lack of comparable data or lack of comparable lending patterns. We have to create a market, which the Green Line Fund is also doing, but we have to create a market.
The Green Line Fund.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
So the Equal Housing Opportunity Council recently announced a project where they copied what's called the Green Lining Fund from Detroit. And literally, so you will have a bank that will lend that will make a mortgage loan to someone in a low-income neighborhood, but also there will be basically a second mortgage on top of that because usually the house won't appraise out. So they'll make a second mortgage to close the gap in between what the appraisal value is and what they actually need to create a market.
And when you mention redlining, it's important to remember that there is a historical legacy of lending institutions playing a role in building the segregated city that we have today.
Yeah, absolutely. I live north of Del Mar, and my father and I actually live north of Del Mar, and our houses would be, tens of thousands of dollars worth more if our houses were on the south side of Del Mar versus the north side of Del Mar.
Mm-hmm. And what about things like just the availability of branches opening and ATMs opening? How much does that play into
The
this?
availability of branches makes a huge difference because if you go north of Del Mar, you see more payday lenders and title lenders than you do actual bank branches. Also the availability of credit is a huge factor. The availability of people being able to increase their credit scores, thereby not going to payday lenders and title lenders.
And other info you're looking for is about just who these banks are employing?
Yeah, their workforce diversity. We're looking at a copy of their most recent CRA reports or the Community Reinvestment Act reports. And we're also asking this year a new question, what are you doing what have you done with the Ferguson Commission report? What things what calls to action have you addressed in the Ferguson Commission report?
Mm-hmm. And I heard you talk about that. And connect the dots for someone who's just new to this issue. The treasurer of the city of St. Louis, what does the Ferguson report have to do with where the city puts its bank deposits?
Well, there was a huge section in the report on financial literacy and financial capability of families, allowing families to thrive. And the city's treasurer is the chief banking and chief cash management officer for the city and chief investment officer. So we have to pay strict attention to the banks that we do business with to make sure that they are that they are making themselves available, that they're making loans in low and moderate income areas, that their branches are available in low and moderate income areas. We want to make sure that we're getting the best bang for the buck for the city, but also for the residents.
Mm-hmm. And so at this point, what's happened here is that you're asking questions of these banks, right?
Yes. We're asking questions versus there are some cities that have had this information actually enshrined in city code. We prefer to, have a gentler approach or kinder or gentler approach and just asking for the information. And, for the most part, all of the banks have complied, or banks that we do business with have complied.
They told you that they will give you this info, or you're already having it come in?
Some of the information we've asked for in previous years, and they haven't had a problem giving it to us.
All right.
Yes.
So the question is, by asking about these questions, there's an implication that you'd like to see some changes in their practices. So what leverage do you have as the treasurer of the city of St. Louis to get the banks to pursue some of these things?
Well, we can use the leverage of not doing business with those banks anymore. Not approving them to be on the list of approved institutions at the financial institution that the city does business with. Because that list literally tells every city department these are the only banks that you can do business with.
Mm-hmm. So what happens next in this process for you?
So we're getting the banks and financial institutions are turning in the data, and like I said, we'll synthesize that. We'll look at it, and then we'll have a funds committee meeting in the summer to actually have an honest and frank conversation with banks about all of the data points that we see from the information that they turn in. And
some of this can be kind of arcane, and the financial details may seem obscure to some folks. Is this a process that you're looking for public input, and the public might want to be a part of this ongoing process?
Well, there's a public meeting. So when the funds committee meeting is called, it is a public meeting.
Do you usually get much attendance at the funds committee?
No, not at all. This past meeting, this past summer we did, but we posted in enough time for people to come, and we would love for the public to weigh in.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to shift gears in a moment, but is there more we want to get in about your relationship with the banks?
The other thing we like to also highlight is that we've changed our investment strategy from a passive strategy to more active strategy, which since 2013 has yielded the city over $20 million in earnings on our investments.
Okay. Well, to shift gears, as
Sure.
I say, we don't want to neglect to ask you about Better Together.
Yes.
Because you have
my favorite subject.
Yeah. Favorite subject, not favorite thing, right? Mm-hmm. You've been openly skeptical about Better Together, and yesterday you came out strongly against the fact that the St. Louis NAACP endorsed
St. Louis County.
I'm sorry, the St. Louis County,
right. Mm-hmm.
Key distinction. They actually endorsed the merger proposal. You've likened that, you said 30 pieces of silver.
Yes.
So you've likened that to a Judas Iscariot-like betrayal of people of color in the city. How so?
Because the president of the St. Louis County NAACP is also being paid by Better Together. That's a serious conflict of interest. If he wants to endorse it as an individual, then by all means endorse it as an individual. But when you are getting paid to also support it, and then you bring your organization to the table, that reeks of impropriety and quid pro quo.
Isn't an elected official allowed to take a stand on something like this?
Yes, an elected official, absolutely, we're allowed to take a stand, but I'm not taking any money from anybody in order to, that informs my opinion.
Is there a version of a city-county merger that you could support?
Yes, I've looked at, I've had several conversations, and I don't even think it's that it's this complicated. I would support the city re-entering the county as another municipality. Also, we could have a couple of seats on the new county council. But then also let city voters decide what type of government that they want still within the city limits. So the city still remains a city, even though it's within a county now. But let the city voters decide what kind of government they want.
And you've been getting yourself to the court on time a few times lately in the past year, right? There's been a series of court battles over the city control of parking revenues, and that's made it all the way to the Missouri Supreme Court. That case is scheduled for May 14th.
Yes.
So that's a substantial amount of money that your office might lose control over. If the court doesn't go your way, how does that affect the kinds of plans we're talking about here today?
Well, if that case stands, the one thing that still stands is that the city treasurer is still the parking supervisor by state statute. So that does not change. At question here is a municipal burden from the mayor's office and Alderman Jeffrey Boyd. And it's funny, we talk about municipal burdens, and the case talks about how this is that the state can't tell city officials what to do and which commissions that they sit on, yet the same statute, there's another statute that details the funds commission that says that the mayor and comptroller may or shall sit on the funds commission. So it's selective outrage.
Okay. Well, you still have your day in court in front of the Missouri Supreme Court to come.
Yes.
But is the job of treasurer in this city, whether it's you or anyone else, in danger of losing some influence?
I don't know. It all depends on what the Supreme Court says. I mean, because they could, we know that the Supreme Court could rewrite the statutes if they so choose and say that this is the way that they would like it to be going forward. So we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, and even then, May 14th is just the oral arguments. We don't know when their decision's going to come.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Finally, I'd love to ask you, Treasurer, about the College Kids program. I know that's something you've been working on for some time, and there's a public event coming up. Tell me a little bit about that.
So the College Kids Children's Savings Account program has a total of 13,567 children saving for college in the city of St. Louis. The Treasurer's Office, through the control of the Parking Division, we seed the accounts with $50 and the first $50, and parents are able to earn incentives through either matched savings, perfect or near perfect attendance, or families' participation in financial education courses. We're very proud of this program because not only of the number of children saving, but the amount of assets. We're about to hit $1 million in assets this fall. That's $1 million saved for post-secondary education. They can use that for vocational school. They can use it for, college, community college, apprenticeships. So it's a broad stroke of what they can use those post-secondary education dollars for.
Mm-hmm. And a positive response from folks who've been involved in this?
Yes, absolutely. As children get their letters, I've seen social media posts from their parents of them jumping up and down on, a couch saying, yeah, I'm going to college. Because research at Washington University says that children with less than $500 saved are 3 times more likely to go to college and 4 times more likely to complete college than children without savings. So it's not necessarily it's not always the what's in the account, but it's the presence of the account that makes the difference.
Mm-hmm. Is anything else coming up you'd like us to know about that you're working on?
Our budget's coming up, so that
people love budget season, right?
Budget season is my favorite season.
Get a first row seat to that.
Yeah, our budget is coming up, and for those who don't know, the Parking Division budget does not go through the regular Ways and Means process. It goes through the Streets, Traffic, and Refuse Committee, and we'll have a Parking Commission meeting first to present our budget to the Parking Commission coming up in early May, and then after that gets voted out, it goes to the Streets, Traffic, and Refuse Committee, and I invite everybody to come in and plug in to see how we're spending parking dollars. We're investing in people in our office.
Yeah, I mean, and I make light of it a little, but that's a bit of the perception is that this is a process that goes on and on. It's inaccessible to people who are actually living in the community, but it results in what you see on the street every day.
Exactly. And every time you feed a meter, every time you pay a parking ticket, a portion of that is going towards our financial empowerment efforts, not only the College Kids program, but the Office of Financial Empowerment in City Hall, which our primary mission is to help people make better choices with their money.
Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
That's St. Louis Treasurer Tishaura Jones. This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to conservation and careful management of the state's forests to make them more resilient and better habitats for wildlife. ChooseWood.com.